The moment he sits down, he cannot take his eyes off the woman across from him. She is beautiful, calm, and unlike anyone he expected to meet that morning. So he smiles and says one simple word: "Morning." The woman is Susan Parrish. She comes from a wealthy family, works as a doctor, and usually does not let strangers into her world so easily. But this man is different. He is polite, he is charming, he is confident without being arrogant, and somehow, everything he says makes her smile. They talk about coffee, work, love, and the kind of connection people spend years trying to find. For Susan, it feels impossible. She has never expected to be so interested in a stranger, and yet, with this man, everything feels natural. Their habits match, their thoughts line up, even the silence between them feels comfortable. But Susan has to go to work, and because neither of them knows whether this beautiful moment will ever happen again, they become unusually honest. He tells her that even though she is a doctor, he does not want her to examine him, because he likes her too much. Susan smiles and tells him she does not want to examine him either, because she likes him too. It is almost a confession, but neither of them asks for a name, neither asks for a phone number. They simply walk away. Then comes the cruel part. When he turns back, she is walking away. When she turns back, he is already leaving. Each thinks the other has moved on, but both of them are quietly hoping fate will be kind enough to bring them together again. A few minutes later, the young man steps into the street, and he is struck by cars. His life ends instantly. But if destiny is not finished, sometimes a story continues in a stranger way. Susan's father is Bill Parrish, a powerful media tycoon about to celebrate his 65th birthday. He has built an empire, raised 2 daughters, and lived a life most people would call complete. His older daughter, Allison, is busy planning an enormous birthday party for him. But lately, Bill has been distracted. He keeps hearing a strange voice. At first, it is faint. Then it becomes impossible to ignore. During dinner with his family, the voice calls him into the study. Bill follows it, unsure whether he is losing his mind. The room seems empty. Then a figure steps out from the shadows. It is the same young man Susan met that morning, but the person inside him is not that man anymore. The voice tells Bill that he has existed since the beginning of humanity. He was never supposed to be curious about people, but Bill has caught his attention, and before taking Bill away, he wants to experience life as humans live it. Bill slowly understands. This is death. Earlier, Bill had suffered a sudden heart attack, only to recover moments later. Now he realizes he should have died that day. Death delayed it, and now death wants a deal. Bill will receive a little more time alive. In exchange, Bill must keep death by his side and show him the human world. Bill cannot reveal who he really is. If he does, the deal ends immediately. Bill thinks about it. He is not afraid for himself. He has lived well. He built his company. He loved his wife. He raised his daughters. In many ways, he is ready to see the woman he lost years ago. But he cannot leave his daughters without saying goodbye. So Bill accepts. If this strange deal gives him time to prepare them, then he will take it. Bill asks why Death looks like such a handsome young man. Death answers simply, he needed a body. At dinner, Bill brings the stranger to the table. Everyone is shocked. For years, no outsider has ever joined the Parrish family so casually. Bill introduces his family to the young man, but he does not introduce the young man properly to them, because he has no idea what to say. Finally, he calls him Joe Black, an important friend. The mood at the table becomes deeply awkward. Joe behaves like a child visiting Earth for the first time. He studies everything. He asks strange questions. He does not understand ordinary social rules. Then Susan arrives home from work. At first, she does not notice him, but when she finally sees Joe sitting at the table, she freezes. She recognizes his face. She asks why he is there. Everyone looks confused, so Susan explains that they met that morning. But when Joe responds, something feels wrong. He looks exactly like the man from the coffee shop, but his voice, behavior, and personality feel completely different. Susan assumes he is uncomfortable because he has realized who her father is. She does not know the truth. The body is the same, the soul is not. After dinner, Bill immediately questions Joe. Why does he know Susan? Joe answers honestly. He only took the body after the young man died. Bill is disturbed, but he has more urgent problems. He puts Joe in a guest room and leaves. Joe, bored and curious, starts exploring the house. Eventually, he reaches the kitchen. The cook treats him kindly, and when Joe becomes fascinated by peanut butter, she gives him a spoonful. Joe loves it. Then she gives him another clean spoonful. Still holding the peanut butter, Joe wanders through the mansion and finds Susan by the pool. This becomes their second private conversation. Susan is still confused by him. The morning meeting felt magical. The dinner felt cold and strange. So she tells him honestly. When they first met, she felt something she had not felt in a long time. She thought he felt it too, but now he seems distant. She wants to know why. Joe, who barely understands human romance, keeps licking peanut butter from the spoon. Susan finally takes the spoon away. Then Joe tries to answer. He tells her he did not mean to offend her at dinner. He says he is not very good at talking to people, and his work leaves him little time to think about anything else. For Death, this is a factual explanation. For Susan, it sounds like rejection. Hurt, she says goodnight and leaves. The next morning, Bill rushes to Joe's room, worried about what trouble Death might cause. He finds Joe struggling with a tie. Joe tells Bill he likes his family. They are kind. Bill immediately becomes alarmed. He reminds Joe that the agreement is only about Bill, no one else. Joe promises he will keep his word. Then Bill takes Joe to the office. The company is facing a major decision. Drew, Susan's boyfriend and one of Bill's board members, is pushing a merger that would sell Bill's company into a larger corporation. Drew sees it as a career-making move. Bill sees it as losing the life's work he built. Joe insists on attending the board meeting. Bill has no choice but to allow it. The other board members are uncomfortable, especially Drew. When Bill refuses to approve the merger, Drew pushes back, arguing that the sale is inevitable, just like death and taxes. Joe, hearing the word death, suddenly becomes interested. He politely asks what death has to do with taxes. Drew thinks Joe is mocking him and becomes even more irritated. Joe only smiles. A polite smile with something ancient underneath it. Bill quickly pulls Joe out of the meeting before things get worse. Later, while Bill works, Joe leaves and somehow appears at Susan's hospital. Susan is surprised and secretly happy to see him. She thought they might never speak again. Before they can talk properly, a patient is brought nearby. An elderly woman with cancer looks at Joe and instantly understands what he is. When her family leaves, she asks if he has come to take her. Joe says no. She tells him she is tired of pain and asks him to let her go soon. Joe is not supposed to change human lives at will, but moved by her suffering, he promises her it will be soon. Afterward, Joe leaves quickly. The hospital is full of fragile lives, and Death should not stay there too long. Susan misunderstands and thinks he is being considerate of her work. Her feelings for him grow stronger. That night, Bill gathers the family for dinner again. Because Joe saw Susan at the hospital, they talk more than before. Both Bill and Drew notice. Bill is frightened by how close Joe is getting to his daughter. Drew is jealous. He cannot understand why Joe has suddenly become the center of attention. Drew has been dating Susan. Drew has been trusted by Bill. Drew believes he is the future, but Joe's arrival has unsettled everything. When Susan invites Drew to dinner the next night, he refuses. Then he breaks up with her. The relationship ends almost too easily. Drew cares more about power than love. Susan never truly loved him either. She admired him, maybe respected him, but her heart was never his. With Drew gone, Susan becomes even more drawn to Joe. She asks him if he is married, if he has a girlfriend, if he even likes women. When Joe says no to all of it, she asks the obvious question: why is someone like him alone? Joe has no answer. He avoids the question and goes to bed. Meanwhile, Drew is already working behind Bill's back. He secretly gathers board members and pushes them to approve the sale without Bill. Drew also brings in Quince, Allison's husband. The night before, Quince had spoken with Bill about the company and misunderstood something Bill said. Bill had said future decisions might depend on Joe. What Bill meant was that he might not live long enough to make them himself. But Quince does not know that. Drew uses the information to convince the board that Joe is controlling Bill. At the next meeting, Drew attacks. He demands to know who Joe really is and why a non-board member has influence over the chairman. Because of his agreement with Death, Bill cannot explain. Drew uses that silence against him. He pushes the board to remove Bill from power and approve the sale. Most of them agree. Bill loses control of his own company. Afterward, Quince realizes he has been used. He confronts Drew, calling him a manipulative snake. Drew calmly warns him to stay quiet if he does not want to lose everything too. Quince is horrified, but the damage is already done. That night, Joe is alone by the pool, remembering something new. The night before, Susan had invited him for a walk. The moment became intimate. They kissed. For Joe, it was the first time he ever understood what a kiss could mean. Now Susan finds him again. She has been thinking about that kiss too. Their feelings finally break through. For the first time, Death experiences human love not as an observer, but as someone inside it. But Bill sees them together, and this is the one line he cannot allow Joe to cross. Bill has tolerated Joe invading his home. He has tolerated Joe disrupting his work. He has even tolerated losing control of his company, but he will not let Death fall in love with Susan. He cannot imagine what will happen to her when Joe leaves, and he fears something worse. What if Joe takes Susan with him? Bill confronts Joe in rage, but Joe is not one of Bill's employees. He does not fear Bill's authority. He reminds Bill to choose his words carefully, because Bill is not the one in control. The next day, Joe goes to the hospital looking for Susan, but she is not there. Instead, he finds the elderly woman again. Her pain has grown worse. She asks him to take her now. Joe does not understand humans. When he comes for them, they want to stay. When he lets them stay, they sometimes want to go. The woman explains what Joe still does not understand. Human life is complicated. When suffering becomes too much, leaving can become peace. Then she gives Joe advice. She knows he loves Susan, but he does not belong in this world. To feel love, even briefly, is already a gift. He should not ask for more than that. He should leave with the beauty of the memory. Joe realizes she is right. He came to Earth to understand passion. Now he has. So he helps the woman pass peacefully. Then he finds Bill and tells him the time has come. After Bill's 65th birthday party tomorrow night, they will leave together. Bill knew this day was coming, but hearing it still hurts. The next day, a helicopter carries Bill to his birthday celebration at a beautiful estate. The party is enormous. Powerful guests arrive. Lights cover the grounds. Allison has spent months planning every detail, trying to give her father the perfect birthday. Bill still has business to handle, so he leaves Joe alone for a while. Joe wanders the estate and finds Quince drinking by himself. Quince confesses what happened with Drew and begs for a way to fix it. Joe sees that Quince may be foolish, but he loves Allison and is loyal to Bill. So Joe tells him to go confess the truth. Bill will forgive him. Quince finally finds the courage. Meanwhile, Bill talks with Allison. For so long, Allison has quietly accepted that Susan held a special place in her father's heart. She never complained. She only loved him in her own way. As Bill nears the end of his life, he finally sees how much Allison has done for him. For the first time, he truly tells her how proud he is. Night falls. The estate glows with lights. The birthday celebration begins. But beneath the music and laughter, a goodbye is approaching. Susan has been struggling ever since Bill warned her that Joe would not stay. When she sees Joe again, she tells him she loves him. She says she wants to be with him forever. Joe misunderstands. He thinks she may be willing to leave this world with him, so he goes to Bill. To Joe's surprise, Bill does not explode. Instead, Bill calmly tells him the truth. Joe says he loves Susan, but he does not fully understand love. Love is not possession. Love is trust, responsibility, understanding, sacrifice. Susan does not even know who Joe really is. Part of her love began with the young man from the coffee shop, the body Joe is using. Joe may think he is being loved, but he is also using someone else's face and someone else's unfinished connection. Bill's words hurt because they are true. Joe goes back to Susan, ready to reveal who he is. But Susan speaks first. She says that from the moment she met him in the coffee shop, she knew he was the one. If he must leave, she would go with him, or she would wait for him. If Joe were truly the man from the cafe, these words would be beautiful. But he is not. For the first time, Joe fully understands. He is not the only one Susan loves. He is also standing in the place of someone else. Still, before saying goodbye, Joe lets Susan feel the truth through an embrace. At first, she reacts with fear, as if her body senses what he is. Then she softens, because her fear does not erase her love. She asks him to say it, that he loves her now, but Joe cannot give her the future she wants. After their goodbye, Joe returns to Bill and tells him only the two of them will leave tonight. Bill understands. Joe has learned passion, now he has learned love. Before the end, Bill still has one problem to solve: his company. He calls in Quince and Drew. Joe takes control of the conversation. He lists Drew's betrayal and claims to be an investigator from the IRS. Bill immediately plays along. Together, they push Drew until he exposes himself. Unknown to Drew, Bill has already connected the board members by phone, and they hear everything. Drew tries to resist. Then Joe warns him that if he does not resign and confess, he will face something far worse than prison. Not years in a cell, thousands of years in darkness. Drew finally breaks. Still suspicious, he says Joe is not really from the IRS. Joe simply answers, death and taxes. With Joe's help, Bill saves his company. Now he has no unfinished business. At the party, powerful guests celebrate Bill's life. Bill steps down from the stage and embraces Allison and Quince. Then he reaches Susan. She has already begun to understand. Joe has been near her father for a reason. Bill's time is ending. Susan does not want to let go, but she cannot stop what is coming. So Bill asks her for one final dance. As fireworks bloom above them, father and daughter hold each other under the night sky. This is not just a birthday, it is goodbye. Nearby, Joe watches alone, and even death begins to cry. When Bill finally walks toward him, he looks back at the world one last time. Then Bill and Joe cross the bridge together and disappear into the darkness, toward whatever waits beyond it. Susan follows, unable to stop herself. But when she reaches the bridge, a young man walks back toward her. It is the man from the coffee shop. Alive again, Joe has returned the body and given Susan a chance to continue the love that began before death entered the story. For a moment, Susan feels loss, because she knows this man is not the mysterious soul she just said goodbye to. But then she understands. This was the love that started everything. And maybe one day, after a full and happy life, she will meet Joe again. For now, she chooses life. Meet Joe Black is a 1998 romantic fantasy drama directed by Martin Brest, starring Brad Pitt as Joe Black and the young man from the coffee shop, Anthony Hopkins as Bill Parrish, Claire Forlani as Susan Parrish, Jake Weber as Drew, Marcia Gay Harden as Allison Parrish, and Jeffrey Tambor as Quince. The story follows Bill Parrish, a powerful businessman visited by death just before his 65th birthday. Death takes the body of a young man who briefly met Bill's daughter Susan, then asks Bill to show him what it means to be human. In return, Bill receives a few extra days to say goodbye. What begins as a strange bargain slowly becomes a story about love, family, power, and letting go. Bill has spent his life building an empire, but at the end, what matters most is not the company. It is his daughters. It is the chance to tell Allison she is valued. It is the chance to dance with Susan one last time. It is the chance to leave without regret. Joe comes to Earth, wanting to understand passion, but he learns that love is more than desire. Love is not taking someone because you cannot bear to let them go. Love is knowing when to leave so the person you love can live. That is why his final choice matters. He does not take Susan, he gives her back a future. And Bill, facing the end, shows what dignity can look like. Not because he is unafraid, but because he accepts the truth with grace. Meet Joe Black reminds us that life is brief, love is dangerous, and goodbye is never easy. But if we live with enough honesty, enough passion, and enough courage to love without possession, then maybe even death becomes less like an ending and more like a bridge. That's all for today's movie recap. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and share.